This is an interview with Mighty Fall guitarist Nick DeSimone on Sunday, May 2nd, 2021 by Nick Perkel. Now, Nick, tell me about getting your first guitar and were you involved in any music lessons or private tutors?
I was, yeah. I started playing guitar when I was about 13, I guess it would have been, and I'm like the only musician in my family. It was kind of out of nowhere for them probably, but I got my first guitar right about then. My folks were, very supportive of it, so they told me basically, first guitar and lessons are on us. And everything else, you want to get more stuff, you want to do whatever you want to do, you got to get a job, whatever. So that was that. First guitar was a old mom and pop music store acoustic. It was kind of a hunk of crap, not really that good. So I bashed on that for a little while and got a job washing dishes, and bought an electric guitar from there, and it was pretty. It made sense. All my friends were starting to kind of start bands and play instruments, and I felt a little left out. So that kind of was natural, I guess, for me, because there were always just like a lot of guys to jam with right about then when I was maybe that age. And yeah, I had a cool guitar teacher who kind of like understood where I was at, and his name was Ian. I'm not sure if he's still at it or not, but he was really cool and put it all together in a way that like made sense for me, which I'm definitely very thankful for, because I think he kind of like set the wheels in motion for me to know how to do the things that I do now, which is great. I took lessons for probably about 3 years maybe, and then I kind of felt like I'd gotten what I wanted to get out of it, and that was that.
What was it like cutting your teeth as a musician in the Rhode Island area, dealing with all the creative people from your show promoters, booking agents, zinesters, radio, and podcasting community?
Well, Rhode Island is it's a small state, but this is a great, Providence especially is such a great, it's an arts city. We are, there's Rhode Island School of Design is over here. There's just such a great arts community in this area. So there's always, when I was younger, there was, especially, a lot of those clubs have closed down over the years, but, there's always places to play, and there's always kind of like people to jam with. God, I picked up bass on a whim, like not too long into playing, and I got so many gigs just by being available and interested in doing that. So there was, I've played everything from, death metal to jangly indie rock and pretty much everything in between. So I've definitely been around the block because there is so much diversity in this kind of community. One of the first places that I was actually able to play as an underage person back then was an art gallery. So, the art, that kind of art, visual art and music and all these different kinds of mediums all sort of come together and everybody hangs out, Yeah, we're very fortunate to be in that kind of community, and everybody, maybe it wasn't always true that everybody was like very supportive of one another, but I think, especially in more recent years, like, I still hang out with guys that I played shows with 10 years, 15 years ago. It's definitely still a pretty tight knit bunch of guys, and there's always familiar faces, even though, new folks will kind of come in, but there's like a lot of familiar faces too. So, we're lucky to have what we have here.
Now, tell me the history of the Mighty Fall with forming the lineup.
So, I'm actually, I was kind of a surprise to those guys. I basically was, at the time that we started, I was, out in your neck of the woods, actually, as you know. And I'd gotten offered to come and play guitar for my buddy's solo. My friend is a solo artist, and he needed a guitar player. And he kind of would like put these bands together. So he needed some guys for a tour, and I kind of told him, okay, well, yes, I'll do it, but my stipulation is I want to pick the drummer. So the drummer in Mighty Fall is one of my oldest friends. His name is Zach Caruso. He's a drummer that I've been playing with since we were kids. We were in our first band together. So we're very good friends. It's been a long time now. And, he hadn't really been playing a lot of drums for a couple of years there. So I was sort of getting caught up in day job land at that point. So when that offer came up, I got in touch with him, and we went and, when I tell you it was like a like a dirt floor tour, I'm saying we hitched a trailer to the back of my car, my sedan, and trucked around the country for a month, and so that was pretty cool. So he had just started jamming with all the guys like right before that. So he, as he kind of tells it, he sort of like joined this band, and then he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna bail for a month. I'll see you guys. So when he came back, we kind of fast forward a little bit, maybe 6-8 months. I was just back in town visiting, hanging out for Christmas, and I hung out and jammed with them. He invited me down, and I thought it was cool. I thought it was like a neat. The early material was kind of still getting like, it was most of the way there, but it was still kind of getting fleshed out. I haven't even been released yet, and I thought it was neat enough. And he'd kind of been joking with me like, you should drum in a band. I'm like, well, I don't exactly want to do another like kind of remote band thing, but basically, long story short, things kind of fell into place where I was like, all right, well, I'm bailing on New York. I'm coming back to Providence. And I just sort of told him, and mind you, I had met these guys once before that, the other guys in the band. And we had hung out for a couple of hours. I hung out with them while they were jamming their set, and then we were just kind of like, hey, do you want to play some Pantera? And that was kind of like about the extent of it. We're like, me and our bass player, his name is also Zach, we had a real like Step Brothers moment of like, you want to do karate in the garage? Did we just become best friends? Like, yeah, let's play some Pantera. So, jamming a little bit. So I pretty much texted drummer Zach and told him, hey, listen, I'm coming back in a month. I'm joining your band. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you I'm joining your band. So I wouldn't have taken no for an answer pretty much regardless. So yeah, that was about it. Yeah.
What have been some valuable lessons you learned working in music promotion that you use to work with your band?
That's a good question. I think the main thing, the biggest thing for sure, is basically making sure that your band has a voice, not kind of when you're putting things out in the world, not having these sort of canned messages and engaging with people and making sure that the things that you say are eye-catching. And I don't necessarily mean that in like an edgy kind of way or anything like that. I mean, having a distinct voice, having a sense of humor. We do. My favorite thing to do is I'll do these really Mickey Mouse like Photoshop edits of things on my phone, and we'll post those as promotion, and we'll just be like kind of there's a little bit of tongue-in-cheekness to all of it, and that I think definitely helps a lot. I think just getting people's attention and not being too dry and too diplomatic has really served us well. Having merch items that are eye-catching. We sold hot sauce a couple of times now, and that's always good. Just doing things that are going to sort of turn heads in a way that people go, oh, that's interesting, is going to get you a lot further than like, obviously the songs are important, but it is all about how you deliver them, and it's about putting on a really good show and just giving people stuff to talk about. You know what I mean? That's, I think, the most important thing that I took away from being a promoter as I used to be.
Why did you name your EP Look the Part, and what is the meaning behind that?
So Look the Part was my idea. A lot of our former singer, who is no longer in the band, but a lot of his lyrics kind of at the time were sort of centering around mental health in a way that was the theme that sort of ran through a lot of it was like keeping it together, sort of putting on a face so you can be a person. So I just thought, Look the Part is also just I thought it was a cool name for a hardcore record, but it also makes sense in that sense where it kind of ties into that theme of sort of like putting on a face. Like if you the image of the cover's a little distorted, but it's like he was sort of yanking his face off, so it's a little on the nose. It's not exactly that great a metaphor, but it's, we like to be a little straight ahead too sometimes. So that's pretty much the gist there.
For this collection of songs, for Look the Part, what was it like for your band composing the music?
When I joined the band, the guts of the music was like mostly done. Our other guitar player, Andrew, wrote a lot of that material. That was his baby sort of before I came into the picture. The stuff that we're doing now, so just so you're aware too, we're, in the middle of recording a record right now that's a lot different. So Look the Part, it's almost funny for me to like sort of talk about Look the Part because it's, at this point, we're so far removed from it. We recorded it and sat on it for almost a year before we even put it out, and then there was all the writing up until then. So we're so far removed from that record. But basically back then, it was sort of Andrew's baby before I kind of came into it, and it was the structures were pretty much there. My role essentially became like massaging it into having a vibe, because all the songs on Look the Part are, in my opinion, they're pretty different. They could all sort of be songs from a different band. So I think my role in that point was I added a couple parts here and there. There was a little bit of stuff that was me, but I think my role was mainly tying it all together in like a vibe and, parts and playing and like, we always kind of like joke. It's like, Andrew's the finance guy. I'm the Flash, so it's like the vibe versus the skeleton of it. Where we're at right now is a lot more collaborative, which I think is really cool. We are very like open to try stuff. We kind of, our rule in songwriting now is basically nothing gets thrown out until we try. So we'll try stuff. Maybe say like, I'm not really crazy about that, but we'll give it a shot. And we'll, we demo things pretty comprehensively too. So it's, if it doesn't work, there's no point in forcing it. We want just everything to be killer. Every riff should be the money riff. Every part should be, no filler whatsoever. We'll try things and we'll bounce things back and forth. And Andrew and I work together too. So we'll kind of talk these things over. I write a lot of the lyrics. That's the only thing that's like not particularly collaborative anymore is, pretty much immediately after Look the Part and I pretty much took over writing the lyrics. But musically speaking, it's pretty damn close to a 50-50 when you factor in, even if like, let's say for example, maybe on a particular tune, I wrote most of the riffs. Andrew's job then becomes a lot of the arranging. A couple of us kind of take the reins. We always try to have, the rhythm section in the room too, because, even if they don't necessarily have parts to add, then at the very least, there's extra people in the room to go, hey, is this any good?
Now, as you were writing Look the Part, what did you find were your most listened to albums?
I was kind of like bouncing around, I think, at that point. I'm always pretty much always listening to like Every Time I Die and Norma Jean and Converge and those types of bands, those sorts of like, noisy hardcore sorts of bands. Dillinger Escape Plan, I love them, a lot of that sort of stuff. I think at that point, a lot of those types of tunes, I think I was just sort of biding my time for the, the vibe in the band to change a little bit and kind of just waiting it out. So I was like listening to a lot more probably kind of chaotic stuff at the time, which if you listen to Look the Part, you're not going to hear a whole lot of that, but where we've sort of ended up is a little closer to that ballpark. It's sort of tough to say. It's like hard to remember because that was a little while ago. I was definitely like listening to more extreme stuff where right now it's like, it's funny as the music that we're making has gotten more kind of gnarly and chaotic and there's elements of more extreme stuff sort of creeping in, but there's always hooks and there's always like, you can hum it back, right? It's not just a blur of garbage, which don't get me wrong, I'm a grind guy and all that sort of stuff at heart, but I think having memorable parts is like so important. So, now I think really a lot of what as the music gets heavier, I'm just listening to like stoner rock and like desert stuff and Caius and Corrosion of Conformity and all that sort of stuff more so now. So it's always like, I just feel like where I'm at as a person who makes music is always like sort of maybe a little bit further away from what I'm actually listening to, because you just got to get a break from it. You know what I mean?
Can you give me a description about some of the instruments you used, and what kind of programs did you use to edit Look the Part?
How nerdy would you like to get?
I don't know, on a scale from 1 to 10, I guess 9?
Okay, sure. Okay, so Look the Part was recorded in a way that was like pretty, I for time and budget concerns at that point, Look the Part was like very lean and utilitarian, and I think we really, in some ways, I wish it had turned out differently. But it's also, it's a learning experience when these sorts of things. You make a record, you shouldn't be repeating yourself. You got to every record should be a learning experience. So, the guy who we worked with, his name is Brad, and he is great, and he really taught us a lot, and he definitely did his best with the time and the budget that we gave him. As far as how to kind of get certain sounds, we also learned what we like and what we don't like by doing that in a way that was, I've been doing like sort of zero budget DIY recording for a long time now, and I never really had much of an excuse to get better at it, which is why this, we took a lot of what we learned there, and the record that we're working on now is being done in my basement, actually, which is pretty great. So, kind of cuts down on the budget and the time issues where we can experiment and not worry about burning money and really, really take our time and nail the vibe. Now, Look the Part, we basically set the room up. There was a tracking room in the studio that was like just full of amps and stuff. And basically what Brad ended up doing is he put amps on each side to kind of like approximate the stereo space of like a live show, essentially. So, so the amps that weren't on were catching a little bleed from the ones that were. And it was kind of just like to sort of fill out the space a little bit. So I have been an ESP guy for a long time, so I played a bunch of like ESP guitars. I really did most of my tracking with like 2 guitars. My old Jet City amp, I had an orange cabinet. We did most of our tracking with that amp, and then a Black Star amplifier that Brad had in the studio. We rolled in with a lot more stuff than we actually ended up using, which is funny because we're doing the opposite of that now with an absolute bonanza of guitars at my house and amps and sounds and all these sorts of things that we're like experimenting really, really heavily with, and, just trying different stuff, and whatever works and what doesn't. But, Look the Part was done. I think Andrew used a bunch more guitars than I did, but I pretty much did two guitars up the middle. I did all the rhythms with a, like essentially a Les Paul, and I did my leads with a Telecaster, and we did, Andrew he likes his whammy bars, so he had a bunch of different guitars for different tunings and stuff, and we kind of had to just sort of figure it out. Everything was just like a couple of guitars, couple of amps. I think we used some old Fender amp for some clean sounds on the song Water's Edge. There was a really old solid state Fender combo that we thought sounded cool, so we did that, and I just kind of like dialed in a bunch of like weird reverb sounds on an old Line 6 pod, and we kind of like went for it. Didn't really spend a lot of time fine tuning as far as the sounds. It was just kind of like, okay, this is pretty cool. We went in and did some overdubs later on with like some old pedals that Brad had. He had like an old Boss Heavy Metal, which, if you're familiar with those, that's like the classic Swedish death metal sound. And, although these tunes are a little more melodic and up the middle, I wanted to get a little of that in there. So there's just dubs of like literally just filthy, gnarly feedback that kind of like dip in and out here and there. I wanted to do some of that. So we kind of just, pieced it together in a pretty lean kind of way. Like, all right, we're not messing with the sounds. Every song's got the same rhythm tone. It's just kind of like the basics. We went nice and and straightforward. Whereas, now, there's pedals on pedals on pedals. I got probably a dozen fuzz pedals that we're picking through. I got weird stuff I got on the internet. We've got all of my guitars. We've got all of Andrew's guitars. We're trying all different stuff. We got some Gibsons. We got some ESPs. We got some Music Man guitars. We got Andrew really likes Schecter. We've got, I've got all kinds. I just got an old Frankenstein, the old Dimebag Darrell signature amp. Just showed up a couple weeks ago, and that ended up being that's been the sleeper hit of the session so far. I got this Marshall copy that's really fancy sounding. We've been really enjoying the fact that we have no timetable and we're just going completely nuts. The difference is definitely pretty big. But yeah, Look the Part was an exercise in doing a lot with a little. And I'm unfortunately the budget shows a little bit. I'm very proud of how much we got done in just a few days with that one, and how it sounds now. It's an interesting sounding record, and it was a fun time. We recorded in the church. Brad's recording space was the annex building of a church, so we would. It was the middle of winter. It was so cold, and we would just go walk down the street and eat grape leaves at the Mediterranean place, and then freeze our asses off on the way back in there. And you'd have to go into the church to go to the bathroom. It was so creepy being there at night that I would just go and be outside. So it was definitely like a fun time because we were just living there for I think about 5 days. And then a couple weeks later, we went back for just like a pickup day to do some overdubs, and that was that. But it was fun because we were all just hanging out, just having a good time, just drinking Red Bulls and eating grape leaves and hanging out. And it was, even though it was a short timetable, it was like very lax because Brad's got a good way about him. So we were all just joking and laughing. And the thing that he would always say is, we'd fluff a take and he'd go, "Don't be sorry, be better." And that was just so funny. We still all say that to each other to this day. Just like, how about you don't be sorry and be better instead? So yeah, anyway, that's the Look the Part recording experience for you.
Now, listening to the album now, what song are you most proud of and why?
Oh man. Okay. That's a tough one. I'm proud of them all for different reasons. I'm proud of the song Water's Edge because that song went through a lot of change from where I heard it when I joined the band versus where it ended up. Particularly vocally, our former singer and I kind of had to come together on that one and fix it because it was, that song was a dog when we first got started. It was like a very strange bunch of lyrics. And I think, we massaged it into something that wouldn't be ridiculous to play a bunch of times. I'm very proud of the song Legends and Tyrants because I'm a good time guitar player. I'm a rhythm guy at heart. I can do other stuff, but I want to chunk on cool. The riff is king. You know what I mean? I come from music where the riff is everything, right? It's like if you took the solos out of Black Sabbath, what would you have? You'd still have a great riff. You'd have a great song. So, that sort of stuff is really important to me. But that song is cool because it has a big dueling lead guitar section in it where Andrew did his part. And it's great too, because when you listen to that song, you can really hear the differences between us, which I think is so fun. He's playing his super Strat guitars and he's got his wah, and it's kind of like Hammett-y. He's picking everything, he's doing these kind of scalar runs where it's all picked. And then I came in and I had my crappy Telecaster with strings that were 3 times as heavy as they should have been on it, just doing chicken picking. And it's fun, the differences are very fun, where it's like, he is, I would say he kind of like approaches playing like he's going for a high score, or like he's doing long distance. and then, I play leads like I'm drunk, which I usually, if we're at a show, I usually am, but, it's just the difference of like these sort of tight calculated runs versus like nice big loose, like sort of, I'm coming from like a, the Dimebag school of like big wide vibrato and just stuff that's like kind of like fun. So I think it's a great showcase of how, not only how different we are as players, but how well we come together, which is always great. You know what I mean? I think I'm fortunate to be in a band with somebody who has like technical skill on a level that's very different from me. And, I think we learn a lot from each other all the time, which is really awesome. Like, he's taught me a lot about really like being more analytical. And, I've maybe showed him a little more about like playing for the good time. You know what I mean? Like, dude, bend that note, put some stank on it. You know what I mean? We've had a lot of fun recording ourselves in that way too, where, we can kind of push each other. It's like, dude, it's about the performance. It's not always just about playing it just right. Or, vice versa, you know what I mean? Where it's got to be a little more like under the microscope, So I think that one's a good one. They're all cool songs in their own right, but I think those two in particular, just Water's Edge for how much work went into making it a neat song, and then Legends and Tyrants, I think, for how fun and confident that song sounds compared to, where we were coming from. I think that's where that's where we sort of like settled into a groove with each other,
Now, thinking about the pandemic, have you found any silver linings that make being a musician easier for yourself right now?
Yes, actually, yeah. It has, in a way that we're really bad at saying no to stuff. So we, writing and getting our stuff together for, the next record and everything was really challenging, because we said yes to a lot of gigs. We had tours lined up for that summer. We were really like very busy, especially considering everybody works. Everybody's got, day jobs and side stuff we're trying to do. And everybody's, they keep their plates very full, myself included and the rest of the boys. But, I think when the pandemic hit, when the lockdown happened, we were just kind of like, all right, well, we're all at home. Nobody's working. We're still going to jam. We're going to figure it out. So we took that time and we wrote a bunch. We were less than halfway into writing the new record by the time that happened. And we turned out a bunch of songs, and, we threw things out. We wrote so much that we had to throw things out that we didn't think was quite like cutting the mustard, So that's really cool that we had all that time. We got a lot done. We got caught up on all the stuff that we needed to get caught up on, which I think is important, because we were so nose to the grindstone with, like, especially playing a lot and, starting to dip our toes into being on the road and all that sort of stuff. It was really, really hard to give the writing time, as much as time as it needed. But now, we got a lot done. So it is getting to the point now where not playing shows hurts real bad. While there's definitely a silver lining, I think we're excited to all get back on the road and hopefully eventually get out of the basement again, get out of the studio and, get back into it, because there's so much more music, man. Like I said, we're so kind of far removed from where we were at when we were doing Look the Part that it's like, I just want people to hear this new stuff.
What is your most cherished musical possession?
Man, I got a bunch of cool stuff. I'm kind of a Pantera fanatic, so I've got some signed stuff from Dime and Phil Anselmo and everything that I've sort of tracked down. And I've got like I said before, a Dimebag amp. So that to me is very fun. I got a couple of guitars from some guys in bands that I think are rad. I've got a great Fender Telly from this dude Alex, who was in a band called Silver Snakes that are no longer around. But I kind of browbeat him into selling it to me. I've got a guitar from Andy Williams from Every Time I Die, which is very cool. So that's, I've got a bunch of kind of neat memorabilia floating around. I've got some stuff signed from like Trent Reznor, and God, I got like so many old stubs. I got a bunch of like Devin Townsend memorabilia and all this kind of like fun stuff. I've just kind of like, especially from my old job where I worked for a bunch of labels and everything, I kind of amassed a bunch of like fun stuff. So, but I think a lot of the guitars and the Pantera memorabilia are definitely like paramount, I think, for me.
What is your favorite urban legend or ghost story from Rhode Island?
Oh man, this is fun because Rhode Island is such an old place. It's kind of a spooky New England. If you've never been to New England, if you're listening to this, and you've never been. A lot of it's kind of spooky. These like sort of coastal, like, Stephen King wrote all the stories about New England. I don't know, the main kind of urban legend that maybe people might know about is Mercy Brown, the quote unquote the vampire. I forget exactly what happened. She was buried and came back to life or something, but they just didn't check to see if she was dead, but they called her a vampire. You can go see her grave. It's out in the woods. There was a big, one of the houses has a big red neon cross on the lawn, like as you're pulling into that neck of the woods. So if you go around Halloween, it's eerie, even if it's kind of bogus. Also, I mean, H.P. Lovecraft is from Providence. So, all of the stuff that comes with that, I think we as Southern New Englanders especially kind of appreciate all of that kind of eeriness. And obviously, we're close to Massachusetts. Well, all the kind of, if you've seen that movie, The Wits, that sort of like damp, kind of overcast, creepy colonial Massachusetts sort of vibe is that's not really manufactured for the movies. It's kind of like that here. So, I think the overall spookiness of our region is so fun. I was born right around Halloween too, so this kind of stuff is fun for me. So we're, we love it. I think it lends a certain something to the music, or I like to think it does anyway.
Would you like to go back to any questions?
No, I think that's exactly. I think we're good. Yeah, just keep an eye out. We have so much music to share. Look, the part is very cool, but I'm even more excited about what's coming out. Hopefully we'll have something out this year. If not the entire record, we'll definitely have something this year. You will be one of the first to get it. I can definitely say that. I'll send you whatever we have as soon as it's done. I will send it your way.
Final words.
Buy a t-shirt.
This has been an interview with Mighty Fall guitarist Nick DeSimone on Sunday, May 2nd, 2021 by Nick Perkel.